What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. Mr. Fitzgerald, what's going on in Long Island? A nice rainy day up here in Utica today. What's going on down there?
Oof. We're getting a break of real good weather this week. We're in the 50s. We're feeling nice. I got a nice little sweater on. I'm comfortable at work today. What do you got going on over there? I saw you drinking some fancy water.
I tell you what, this is a first for me, and this is not a sponsorship. Hint water. Changing my life. About a half hour ago, I had to call the lady next door in the office. I'm like, you don't have any water in your office? Because I got nothing. I got a couple podcasts today, and the saliva's running dry. And she's like, yeah, I got some flavored water. This is fantastic. But anyways, that's not why we're here today. Super excited to have on this guest today. We're thankful, very thankful to have Maverick Pitchford on, and he's the owner of Bison Ridge Insurance. Maverick, thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, when we were getting started, our good friend Taylor Garcia was like, you guys got to have a conversation, and we're super excited to have you on and hear your story. How are you?
Good, guys. I appreciate it. I've been listening since the first episode. I'm really excited to talk to you guys. It's always nice to find common ground with other scratch agents. It's not an easy pass, so it's nice to be able to talk to you all about this.
We didn't know actually people listen to this, so that's great. We appreciate it.
Hey, you're the first one.
That's right.
That's funny.
So tell us, it's our first time meeting you. People that are listening, if it's their first time hearing about you, tell us the story of Maverick. How'd you get into insurance, and we can walk through it.
So I grew up in small town Oklahoma, met my now wife in high school and was going off to college. Like a lot of guys when they get to school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. Had a bunch of different degrees, I was going pre-med, realized I don't like school, so I probably shouldn't do pre-med. I was doing, engineering. I'm not, crazy about math. So I was like, probably shouldn't do that either. I was sitting there talking to my in-laws. They were like, hey, you love your business classes. Why aren't you doing a business degree? So I was like, well, I don't know why I never thought about that. So switched to business, ended up getting married in college, and I started working full time. So actually didn't even end up graduating. My wife graduated, we moved back home, and, had to find a job real quick. My wife was pregnant with our first kid and was like, hey, we need to, make some money. So I started working at the bank, one of our local banks here. And I realized pretty quickly I wasn't going to own the bank. And so I was like, hey, dude, I probably should figure something else out, because I knew I always wanted to own my own business. Was talking to a client of mine there at the bank, and she was with Farmers. Gave her my business card, and she's like, I'll have my district manager call you. And I thought nothing of it. I was like, this won't go anywhere. That was on January 1st of 2020. And by February 14th, only reason I know that date is my birthday, I was fully licensed PNC, working for Farmers. So once I kind of decided, I was pretty quick to get into it. Fast forward, I did the Farmers Protege program. I did that pretty quickly. I think I completed that in about 4 months and opened a Farmers agency. Had my Farmers agency for 6 months or so and realized, hey, I'm in my late or early 20s. I'm going to be in insurance for quite some time. So let's go ahead and just take the jump and go independent now. And so that's kind of where we're at now. Bison Ridge has been open for a year and a half, and, learning the ropes and just trying to sell insurance as I can.
Maverick, so you got into insurance February 2020. The only reason I remember that date specifically is because that's February 2020 is when I opened my agency, and that was a few weeks before COVID hit. Yep. So your first couple months in insurance must have been interesting, huh? Yeah,
it was definitely interesting. I kept telling myself, if I can make it through this, I can probably sell through anything. So I think it's good training grounds. I'm definitely grateful for technology. That definitely helps us. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, what's that Protege program that you spoke about? I'm not familiar with it.
So Protege, they take producers that are inspiring to be agents, and they run them through a course where they kind of partner you with an agent that they feel like can teach you well, and kind of fast track you to having your own agency. So it's a good program. I think that I'll be forever grateful for Farmers. They opened the door for someone who had no business experience at all to get into a business pretty quickly. So I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the captive side of things. So when I first started in the industry about 12 years ago, I worked at a nationwide agency. Now, it was quasi-independent, meaning if it didn't fit the mold of nationwide specifically, we could still write outside, but it was very much a captive model when I first started there. And it did have some benefits. I mean, the training is great, but also, too, which I didn't realize until recently, is like the network of people that you meet from being in that captive space. Like we used to have a monthly meeting with other local nationwide agents, and I got so many good lessons from those meetings, mainly because I was brand new. I was like 21 years old, and there was guys in their 40s that were just absolutely crushing it. And I remember every week working so hard, and they would monthly put out like the monthly like leaders for who's writing the most business. And, you know, I would be on the list, but I would never be at the top of the list. And the guys at the top were always the same guys at the top. And I just remember like a couple of them I'd be able to go out to lunch with, and they'd kind of tell me like their strategies and what they were doing to obtain new business. And I remember that being super helpful. Was it kind of similar at Farmers? Did you have like that network of people, or is it a little different?
Yeah, definitely. No, it was the same, and it was kind of cool because the guy that I was under an agency with, he was called a legacy agency. So his dad's been in Farmers agents for like 35 years, so he knew the ropes, you know, coming out of the womb basically. And he was really cool because he was 2 years older than me, so we were just two young guys in a office with no windows by ourselves, just grinding it out. So that was nice, and then also the community. But kind of talking about that was one of the things I was worried about going independent, man. I was like, I don't know. First of all, my whole family's educators, so I know no one that's in business. The Farmers kind of community, like you're talking about, was there for me. What's it going to be like on the outside? What's going to be like on the independent world? And I've been so blessed and so grateful for all of the people in the independent world that have been helpful. But you also have to be willing to ask. And I feel like a lot of young agents, a lot of not even just agents in general, but young professionals in any field, they are not asking the older people for help. And that's something I'm really, really big on, something I really try to, make sure I do. I have a calendar set aside that has, monthly meetings with agents that I'm always looking for, trying to pick their brain about. So I try to have one a month, and then just, talk to guys on, social media as I can. So it's really nice.
One thing, Shawn, did you want to go? Because I'm going to change the topic here. I got another different question.
No, you go ahead.
Build off that. So, one thing that's interesting to me, so you had, when you were at Farmers, so you didn't have any industry experience. You went to Farmers. You were with them for a year and a half before you went on your own?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, that's incredible. So good for you, because I was with another agency for 6 years before I went on my own, and I'm still scared of shit every day. Right?
Yeah,
Right? Like you said.
Yeah.
So, but what would you, I think you kind of answered it there, leaning on other people and asking questions, but because the reason I'm going to ask this, because this listener was who I used to be. The person that might be listening to this that's saying, man, I want to do this, but maybe I don't believe in myself fully. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I don't have the experience. What do you say to that person? What do you think has helped you from only having a year and a half experience to then jumping on your own and finding success?
Well, I tell everyone, for me, I was just dumb enough to do it. I don't think I knew the risk that I was taking. And also just being in my early 20s, I was like, hey, if it doesn't work, I'll just start over. When you talk to all these other Farmers agents, they're like, well, I started when I was 40. That means that there's a whole career you could do before then if it doesn't work out. So that was one thing that was kind of playing in my mind. Secondly, the fact that I'm never, like I said, never afraid to ask people for help. So I instantly started, researching and trying to find agents that, I saw on Facebook, or even that I just knew around town, or, whatever, and asking them for help, what they thought. I had countless meetings. I actually took 6 months. So it's kind of funny. I didn't mention this earlier, but when I opened my Farmers doors on my own agency, about a month in, I kind of knew. I was like, I'll probably go independent. I kind of thought it would be about a year and a half or 2 years in. But God was just telling me, hey, like, it's time. Like, you need to make these moves. So for those first 6 months, I was literally doing research as I was running my Farmers agency. And so I kind of always had that in plan. But yeah, man, just asking for help, that's the biggest thing. So, finding someone that is willing to help you out. And there's so many people that are willing, and so many platforms like your guys' podcast, and there's other podcasts, that are out there. And then just reach out to like the podcast host, or reach out to the guest. If they're talking about it on a podcast, most likely they're going to be willing to talk to you about it as well. It's not like they're not going to want to talk to you. So I think that's really helpful.
It's incredible, isn't it? The amount of people that are willing to take the time and even just have like an hour-long conversation with something you nailed that on the head completely.
It's eye-opening.
It's crazy. Yeah, and I haven't had experience in other industries, so I can't speak about it. But man, it is incredible how people are willing to work together and just help people be better together. So let's keep walking down the road here. So Bison Ridge, tell us about that. I love it. I'm looking at the bison in the background there, about to come through the screen at me. It's getting me all fired up here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's something that I really tried to take some time branding wise. I'm a very religious guy and prayed about it, and just tried to make sure I was on the right idea. I knew that I didn't want to brand it my last name Insurance. Not that that's the worst thing ever, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to sell the business if I ever decide to get out, if it's not, Pitchford Insurance, because most likely there's not any more Pitchfords joining in to insurance that are going to be looking to buy it. I have 3 sons, but I mean, even if they want to get into it, I don't know. I just like the name. And then also, I don't know if you guys have kind of heard the leadership, context that comes with Bison, but I know there's a lot of videos on it online, but we're down here in Oklahoma, so we have a lot of cattle and agriculture, so I'm kind of familiar with that world. And they talk about in a lot of the leadership books I've read that, bison are one of the few animals that we know of that when there's adverse, storms coming or something, they turn and run towards it, right? So as a storm's rolling over the hill, typically a cow is going to run and run away from it, right? They're going to try to get away. Well, I don't know if you guys are around cattle much, but they're not very fast creatures. So a storm's most likely going to catch it. And then they're, as they're running with the storm, they're caught in it, right? The bison realize, hey, if we just turn and run into this thing, we're going to get through it a lot faster. And so the branding behind that, and I really need to do a better job of relaying this to the clients and to the prospects, is that, insurance is something that you're buying that needs to be there for you when bad things come. And that's exactly what we're going to do at Bison Ridge, because when adversity comes, when there's a claim that, is not the most fun thing to handle, we're going to turn around and just take it head on, not push it off until next Monday type of thing.
Woo, I'm fired up, baby.
Man, how old are you, Maverick? That's awesome.
Appreciate
Man.
that.
Good for you.
That.
No, that's
for
good.
you.
I think
Hey,
you just kind of go ahead, Shawn. I keep cutting you off.
No, you go. You're excited.
I think the way I am about to jump through this screen right now. I don't know if it's the 4 cups of coffee I've had in the last 2 hours or the Bison Ridge. Probably a mix of both. I think you just brisk over something there, though, that I think is important to dive into. You said you had 3 boys. You've got 3 boys under 3 years old.
That is right.
You just started a scratch agency.
That's right.
How in the hell are you doing this?
Man, by the grace of God and my amazing wife at home. She was a teacher by trade, and when we took this jump, we took the first year of Bison Ridge, and she worked still, and then we actually found out she was pregnant with the twins. So we have Maverick Waylon, he's about to be 3 next month, and then Kyler Kenneth and Walker Lee, they are both 9 months old. And so when we found out she was pregnant with them, we said, hey, look, we're going to have to do something, and I don't know about where you guys are at, but teachers don't get paid a crazy amount here. And so she was literally just going to be working and paying for daycare. And we were like, we'd much rather have my wife stay home and be, a stay-at-home mom with them. She holds down the fort. I mean, I could not do what I do, even to the minuscule effect of, the little things that she does. It makes it all worth it. It makes it all possible. So that's definitely it.
Now, from a business standpoint, though, with time management, what do you think is something that you find success with? Because regardless, your wife's staying home and taking care of the kids and all that, but still you're pulled in 3 different directions, right? So I think one thing with us scratch agency owners that we can all relate to is how many different directions you're pulling, especially with it when it's just us getting started or whatever. What would you say is there anything specific that you found that works very well for you in that arena of time management through your day?
Man, I wish this was something that I had like a golden nugget on, but it's something I struggle with, if I'm being honest. And I think as a scratch agent, regardless if you have 3 kids or 2 dogs, like you were talking about earlier, regardless, you're going to feel pulled in many different directions. I know every day when I walk through that door, when I get home, I'm like, man, I hope I did enough today, but you have to just be willing to turn it off and say, I'll take care of the rest tomorrow. I do a lot of, after hours work, those type of things, but something that I had a call with Billy Wagner a couple weeks ago that I talked to him. And I know this is not, I've heard a couple other industry people say this, but eating the frog, your worst thing first type of thing. It kind of goes on brand with Bison Ridge, kind of what I talked about, but when they put it that way and doing the service task that you don't want to do first and getting them out of the way, it just sets you up for the rest of the day so much better. That and time blocking, that's helped a lot, but that's kind of a wide topic. So
what's helped a lot too, Maverick? Time blocking is great. I love that you brought that up. With something just from having kids and a wife myself, something that's super helpful is sharing my schedule with my wife.
Yeah.
So saying, hey, honey, tomorrow I got a Zoom meeting at 11, a BNI thing at 7 in the morning, and a thing at blah, 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 blah. This way there's no in the middle of the day, hey, can you go do this real quick? Hey, can you do this real quick? And then it causes stress and anxiety, and then one person feels like they're pulling more weight. Yeah. So sharing the schedule with your wife, whether it's just a text that you send her, I found that to be super helpful.
Extremely,
Yeah.
and a wife that just is plugged into the business. I think she understands that this is not just my business, this is our business,
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
it's something we're working on together. So
Love that.
Maverick, can you talk to me about something I'm very curious about? It might just be a downstate New York thing, but I'm curious what your carrier situation looks like, what it looks like now, and like how you're trying to set that up. Because I know where I'm at. If you're a scratch agent and you don't have a whole boatload of experience and relationships, it's almost impossible to get carrier appointments by me. What's it look like by you?
Well, when I was getting started, they definitely, a lot of aggregators I talked to, they said, hey, this is a pretty rough state, but I got hooked up with Horizon Agency Systems, and they've been really good about setting me up with, I have about 12 or 13 different home and auto carriers. I'm always looking to bring on more. I've actually brought on 2 more in the last 2 months. And so, we have a wide variety. I think it helps that I'm pretty selective on what business I write. When I was at Farmers, it was kind of just write everything. Especially when I was in the protege program, it was, a lot of online leads and internet leads. And that's not the business I'm building. When I started out, I kind of had the mindset that if I could build this business in 2 years with internet leads, then I'm willing to build it in 5 years with the business I want and keep the retention where it's at. And so that's kind of where we're at. It really helps having not shoppers and, non-preferred business type of stuff.
So walk us through the agency. Are you mostly personal lines, commercial lines? Do you have any staff yet? What does the agency look like?
Yeah, so I'm still a one-man show. Let's
go, baby. One-man shows. Hell yeah.
That's right. About probably 98% personal lines, and I probably plan on staying that way for quite a while. Personal lines is where I'm passionate. I know a lot of people end up branching off to commercial, but it's just not something that I'm super passionate about, and I'm not fully convinced that you can't make money in personal lines. When you talk to the Billy Wagners of the world, those guys that are way ahead of all of us, and they're doing it, it just shows you that there's still room to grow for me. It's one of those things that I didn't open my agency to. I promised myself I'd never buy an online lead, like an internet lead, and I would not work at a call center. And so those are two things that I'm just, not going to do. And commercial insurance is kind of the third. It's not that I'm not going to do it. I'm just not actively pursuing it. It's something that if I have a client who owns a business and they want me to work on it, I will, but it's not something I specialize in.
So Maverick, how you generate, niches in personal lines, home and auto, I'm assuming, how are you generating that new business?
So it's a lot of talking to people, letting every single person I know that I do insurance. I don't ever want to talk to someone. They'd be like, what does Maverick Pitchford do for work again? No, they know I sell insurance.
It's the worst feeling ever.
Oh, it's the worst. It makes my gut just turn. It's being active on social media. It's being active in the community. It's, not being afraid to reach out to people. I said not cold calling, but when I'm talking to someone I went to high school with or someone that, I go to church with, and I don't really consider that cold calling because, I saw them last Sunday at church. So on Tuesday when I hit them up about insurance, they're not, it's warm, right? They know who I am and everything. So it's just being active. You just got to go out there and work it. I've kind of found it's not super unique, but giveaways have been really, really helpful for me. I've been doing a lot of giveaways. I'm actually about to launch another one. So those have been really helpful. But yeah, man, just being active on social media and involved in the community has been amazing.
I think this is a good transition too. Talk to us about Tiger of the Week.
Yeah. So this is one of my kind of passions that I, haven't seen a great return from yet, if I'm being honest, but it's something that I know is doing positive work. I've written, actively, like actually written off this one award, 4 or 5 policies. And so it's not something that's like groundbreaking on bringing in leads, but it does get me out there in the community. And it's also my wife and I's alma mater. It's where we went to high school. I grew up playing sports there, so it's something that I'm able to get back in and give in the community and do. We're involved in our youth group at church, and so we're already kind of plugged in with a lot of the high schoolers, and so just bridging that over to the school system and being able to be just someone who they see that they know in the community and they know owns a business, and then also it doesn't hurt whenever you post it on social media and their parents all share it on their Facebook as well.
So how's the program work?
So we do, we work with the coaches. We have a T-shirt and then an award and a a gift card to a local restaurant. And then I kind of go in the first time, and I've done all the sports so far. So I've done it for a year now. So all the sports kind of know what I'm looking for. But the first time I go in, I give the spiel of, Bison Ridge Insurance and what the branding is behind it. And I kind of give the spiel of what the Bison's way of handling adversity. And then I spin that into, hey, you guys, whoever's having that tough matchup this week in basketball, or even whoever has a tough, test, on Tuesday in school, like those are all things you have to take on head on, because regardless if you turn away and run from it, it's still going to be waiting there when you turn around. So you might as well just tackle it head on.
Sounds like being an agency owner.
It does, right? And then so what I tell the coaches is that whoever, if they're there every week, right? They're there at all the practices, so they're looking and seeing who is doing that, and they select the player, and we award them every week that way. So basketball this last season we did boys and girls, and that's the first time we're going to start every season from now on. We're going to do boys and girls sports, whatever one's actively going on, and flip back and forth. So I've really enjoyed it.
Very cool.
How do you set up those? So besides that giveaway, I know you said you haven't had crazy success with that one. Is there another one that you've had really good success with that you could share?
I've had a couple that I feel pretty proud of. We live in a small community of about 10,000 people. We're outside of Tulsa, though. So Tulsa's a larger town, about 300,000. And so I try to find activities that I know people are going to want to do in town and then give that away. So my biggest one so far is the Tulsa Zoo Pass. I do it. I've done it twice now. I've done it twice in the last year. I do it, and I try to strategically do it right when school's getting out, and then around Christmas time when they can give it as a gift. But we do a zoo pass. They enter on Facebook through our JOT form, and it's everyone can enter. You don't have to get a quote. I have 3 specific questions on there: name, phone number, email. I guess there's 4, and then the 4th one is this giveaway is sponsored by Bison Ridge Insurance. We'd love an opportunity to earn your business. Would you be interested in a quote on your home and auto insurance for 5 extra entries on the giveaway? They can select no. They can select. I like that. They can select yes, they want a quote. They can select they're not interested right now, but to contact them in 6 months, or if it's a current client. So I don't give them a specific like no, I don't want a quote. But in 6 months they get recycled in my system and come back up. So we work those leads again.
Yeah, and that's giving away a pass to the zoo.
Yeah. And so that's about $100. So, I mean, if you think you write one policy, you sign, you cover that. Both the zoo passes have been my biggest 2. The first one I had 800 people enter. I had 300 people say they wanted a quote, and then you know how it is. I mean, not every single one of those people want to, ever follow up with you. They ghost you, those type of things. So I think I got 150 quotes off the first time, and then 100 quotes off the second one. So it was really good. It's a lot of work. I have to very much mentally prepare myself because I know the next 2 months is going to be a rough one for me since I'm a one-man show. So
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
Is.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think one thing to touch on too is because I'm big in the community too. It's a long play. Like you say, with Tiger of the Week, you just got to still show up. I mean, it's the same things as being a scratch agency owner and going through the motions each and every day. Like when you're doing the community game and getting involved in the local boards or getting involved in the small town stuff with Tiger of the Week or whatever it might be, you just got to continue to show up, because most of the time, in my experience of just a few years, is that those opportunities come around when those individuals have a problem, then remember who you are and what you do, and then you can solve that problem. And those are the customers that you want, because now they're remembering, oh, Maverick was able to solve my problem when I needed him. Not Maverick just saved me $500 and maybe Bob can save me $500 next time, which that's all good if you can do that, right? But if you're giving out Tiger of the Week and they're so thankful because you gave out little Jimmy Tiger of the Week, and then in 6 months their renewal gets hiked or they have a claim issue or whatever, they're going to remember that. So I think it's important for anybody that's listening, maybe that wants to go down the community road, just like anything else. It's a long-term game.
Right, and it's just staying top of mind too, right? So specifically this week alone, I had a guy that his son actually won Tiger of the Week, and I've known him, and we go to the gym together Tuesday at 5 a.m. And while we were sitting in the sauna, he was like, "Hey man," he's like, "I know you don't know me, but you gave my son an award, and I kind of
I love that.
I know what you do, and I'd love a quote." And so now we're working on a home auto umbrella quote for him. So it's just those things where you just have to stay top of mind. Like I said earlier, I want every person who thinks of Maverick, that helps having a unique name too. But I know not every agent can be like, I'm going to change my name to something unique. But every time they think Maverick, they're going to think Bison Ridge. When they think Bison Ridge, they're going to think, oh, I need to call them for insurance is what I want. So
I mean, Maverick too, just the most awesome name you could possibly have as a human being. I mean, I don't think it gets better than that.
My yellow lab's named Maverick. Just so we
Is
can
it?
have, it's a great.
Well,
name.
my Australian Shepherd's name is Goose, if that makes it any better. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think Maverick and Goose would have a ball together.
Yeah,
what's
definitely.
What's the next step for Bison Ridge? You know, what's that first hire looks like? What's the next big step in the journey? I think it's cool because the three of us here right now are, and I said this before with me and Shawn, we're on the same escalator, just on different steps. I'm 10 months in, you're a year in. Shawn's a little further along than that. What are you, Shawn, 18 months or a little over
like
2?
3 years. 3 years.
Okay. So like we're all still in that startup journey, right? But what for Bison Ridge, what's the next step?
So we're wanting to get a retail spot. We're in negotiations for a lease right now. I currently work from home, and so it's just one of those things that it's a thing for me. I don't think it's necessarily going to create much more business. I've actually struggled with getting a lease or not because I don't think it's going to create me, that much more business. But it may surprise me. But that's the next thing, and then I want to have two new hires by the end of the year. So I want to have two full-time producers that we're bringing on, but we'll see how that goes.
So are you doing all your own, obviously you're doing all your own service work and everything, and that would be the plan for the producers?
Yeah, so I actually had a VA for about 4 months, and I think it was more me than it was him. I'm just not a great teacher. At least that's what my wife tells me, but she's a teacher by trade, so of course she's judging that, right? And so we actually parted ways, and I'm going to end up doing more VA services eventually. But I'm really want to bring on some producers to, produce and have agents underneath me. But it's just a hiring problem right now. Like I said, I'm in a small town, and so not only is the hiring hard in a big city, but in a small town, it's just that much more difficult.
Yeah, I think there's so many, from just the people we spoke, there's so many different ways to set it up, and everyone's agency is so different. So I was a one-man show. My first hire was a VA. And I think the only reason it worked out was because of so I used a lot of Loom to record the videos, screen share. Hey, this is how you do a basic certificate of insurance. This is how, for carriers that don't download, hey, this is how you save this policy in the management system and update all the info. This is how you get the new business documents e-signed, all those things on video, and then get them in one place. And then when you onboard the VA, walk them through, hey, this is where everything is. This is how, this is what it looks like. If you have any questions, just message me on the Ring Central app or whatever phone system you use. Right. Just make sure the communication is there. And I think I brought my VA on way before I really needed to bring her on. So in the beginning, it was literally like there were days I sent her nothing, and she wasn't doing anything. And I'm like, man, I'm kind of wasting money. But it was I felt like that was better than bringing her on when I'm completely swamped and I couldn't handle the work anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. So some people would tell you, hey, save the money.
Sorry. Yeah, and I had that VA working right when I had the twins as well, or my wife had the twins, and so it was just a rough time. So I think we'll probably get back to it real soon. I'll probably have a VA again. It's just like you said, the Loom videos are so helpful. I use Loom, for the training the VAs, but also with every quote I send, they get a Loom video of their quote, and so I love Loom.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah, something I did recently, I've told Steven about this, that's been super helpful as well. So when you download the video on, let's say you're using Loom, you can download it and save it into a file in a Google Drive and just have one place where everything is. So let's say you have your personal lines workflow saved out on a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word. You could all save it into Google Drive. This way, everything for training that VA or producer is in one spot. So they don't have to go to Loom for the training video. They don't have to go to Google Doc for this. They don't have to go to Google Sheet for this. It's all in one place on Google Drive. And the beauty is it's free.
Yeah, that's definitely nice, especially in the scratch business.
Exactly.
Well, let's expand on that because I'm curious at what your systems and processes kind of look like to give you the ability to still be solo. I mean, I'm coming up on about 10 months and starting to feel like, okay, I may be getting time, for that support staff or the next hire, whatever that is. But what do you think has allowed you to continue to just be yourself, the processes or the systems you're using or whatever that might be?
Yeah, so I used agency Zoom, and I did a pretty big investment and hired a third-party service to build out my automations because I know myself and I would be super obsessed about it and take way too much time. And you guys both know, as agency owners, you don't have time to do that. So that was a really big investment that I made that I'm super grateful for. All the automation makes it to where I can, contact people without actually having to contact them, right? And then the quoting system that I use is I have, and this is not groundbreaking, but I have 3 set ideas or 3 set packages that I have for auto and home. And then we quote those, we record the loom, we send it to the client, and then I tell them, hey, let's jump on the phone call, answer any questions that you have, and then build out a customized option off that if that's something you need. But typically they're pretty happy with one of the packages. In my area, most people that contact me are either underinsured or incorrectly insured, and so my packages, as long as they're built correctly, they're usually pretty well set for them.
So dive into the packages. So what do those look like for the prospect?
Yeah, so auto is 100, 300, 100, or not full coverage. I try not to say that, but you know how it is. It's hard not to.
Yep.
Comp and collision coverage, and so the base package is I tell everyone it's my most economically friendly package, and it's going to be the one with the highest deductible, the least amount of endorsements, but it's going to get you good coverage. That foundational bone of the policy is there. The plus package, we start adding the endorsements we like to see with the deductibles lowered, and then the superior package is pretty much maxing everything out that we feel like you need. Obviously, in as much as it is a system based, you have to be flexible within that system, right? So those are just starting off points, and then if someone has higher liability limits already on their auto than 100, 300, I'm not going to lower them just to fit in my system. I just quote off of that, because I'm never going to lower someone's coverage, if that makes sense.
So you're running it through your system, and you're finding out ABC carrier is the best for this particular insured, and then out of ABC carrier, you're sending them good, better, and best.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's kind of, I'm just curious. So you send them the options, you do the loom video. Here's like you just walked through. What's the reaction that you get, from these people? They usually just go middle of the road. Do they just go with the cheapest one? Do you have those conversations? Does it even trigger any more conversations after you've explained everything? What's kind of the main reaction you see there?
So what I've noticed is most people, once you explain it, they don't have a lot of questions as long as you're thorough, right? Because really, I had to realize this after I was doing loom videos for a while. The client doesn't care about their insurance as much as you do. As sad as that is, they should, right? We all want them to, but they just don't. And so if you explain everything, they're usually, not questions. I have an in-depth video that I have pre-recorded that goes through line by line and explains, hey, this is what dwelling coverage is. And so there's that video they can watch too. That's been posted on my page that I use for about 6 months. I've had 2 people watch it. And so people just don't care. That's kind of the, truth of it. But most people end up going with the plus package, which is that middle of the tier. And I had that in mind when I was building it. And so that's the one that I feel super, super confident in. Not that the base isn't, but it doesn't have, water backup, or it actually does have water backup, but it doesn't have equipment breakdown. It doesn't have, you know what I'm saying? So it has less endorsements. So I already knew that most people would end up going with the plus. So that's kind of where I'm shooting for them to get to.
So in this plus has the same coverages no matter what the carrier is, right? These are the same standards that you're setting to for plus or for the next option. Those are all kind of standard across.
Yeah, as long as the carrier offers it. So like,
Sure,
I have some
sure.
carriers that don't obviously offer, matching undamaged, that kind of stuff. But if it's there, we quote it every single time that way. And then we talk to the client and say, hey, this is what this does. How do you feel about it? Because, ultimately it's my job to provide the options and educate you on them. It's not my job to make the decision for you. I'm not a huge fan of, agents who just give them one option. And it's only because I came from that captive world and I knew how that didn't benefit the client. And so when I was going independent, I always wanted to make sure I provide options for them.
Yeah, I like that. And mine's kind of similar, but you seem to have it set up a little bit better in my mind. But basically, I'll do like an apples to apples comparison, and then give the second quote with my recommendations. Now, I'll never give an apples to apples if it's less than my minimum coverage standard, which, like you said, 100, 300. I'm never quoting somebody and saying, hey, this is what we are at 2550. Like, I'm just not doing that.
Yeah.
But I think giving at least 2 options is definitely a home run. What do you use for, I know you said you use Loom. Are you just sending the email, putting the Loom link in, and attaching all 3 attachments to the email, or what is that?
So
Maverick, to expand on that, because that's part of my question as well, I was going to ask is, do you have the specific templates for option 1, 2, and 3? How do you make that with just being yourself as fast as possible for you to get that out there? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think you can answer the same question.
No, you're good. So I actually took some time. I'm very OCD and perfectionist about tech and processes, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because you can dive in, and I don't think your process is ever going to be perfect. And so there's always something you can fine tune to it. So I sat down one time and just took a day and built out a PDF off of a couple ideas that I like. And I just go through, and it has my logo at the top, has a brief little description of who we are. And then it has, broke down, it has the coverages on the left-hand side, their current carrier, and then our 3 options after. So it's one PDF, and I really focused on having it home 1 page, auto 1 page, and then we have a notes and summary section at the bottom. So I literally just flow through it. And then after that, we can scroll back and answer any questions that they have. But like I said, typically, if you're educating them and really making it about coverage, they don't really have too many questions. And that's one of the reasons that I stopped doing the apples to apples, is only because a lot of times that would be just not as great coverage. And then it's very price driven then, and I don't want to be price driven at all. Ultimately, it does come down to price. As much as every agent's like, oh, I'm not going to be price driven, it comes down to price regardless. But if you can skew the needle to the coverage side more, then I think that's better. So
yeah, and I think that's why you got to have. You go, Steve.
No, that PDF is completely branded to you, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. Sorry, Shawn, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's why I say apples to apples, but that's why you have to have the minimum coverage standards in place. And your team has to know what your minimum coverage standards are. Otherwise, you're going to be quoting minimum 100, 300, and Chris in your office is going to be quoting 25, 50 and being like, yeah, we're $1,000 less. We're getting this policy. So
that's another thing that I was super worried about when I took that jump, because I never wrote state minimum, but when I first started, I was writing 50, 100. But I was like, I didn't feel confident in that, and I was always trying to tell them not to do it. So why am I even offering that? I jumped to 100, 300, and at first you're like, how much business am I going to price myself out of? How much am I going to, not write off of this? But once you really just commit to making it about, the educating of the policy, I think that's the way to go.
On top of that, just to build off that, I've spoken with multiple national carriers about limits less than 100, 300. Mm-hmm. And multiple carriers have told me it is the least profitable business, in the sense that those are the people that put in the most claims.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt your book the most. Mm-hmm. And you might lose an appointment because of it. Yeah. It's going to affect your loss ratio. So, it's just a lose, lose, lose across the board. Plus, you're not really helping the client. It's a terrible thing to do, honestly.
Yeah, definitely.
So being a year in the scratch agency journey, you're at a year, right? That's what you said.
I'm a year and a half, yeah.
Like year 18, and a half.
Like 18 months or something like that, yeah.
What are some surprises that maybe you didn't expect? Could be in a good way or a bad way, but I'm just curious, what are some things, I'm sure you said you took some time to think about this decision, obviously, as we all did, and, then just jumped and did it. But what are some things that have maybe surprised you that have been easier, harder, challenges, whatever it might be in your business?
Kind of like what I talked about earlier, the easy part is asking for help. I think maybe not so much locally in my area, but nationally, there's so many agents who are just willing to help you out. And that was something that I was really worried about, because, like I said, I literally have no one in my family that's in business. So that I don't have an uncle that I can go talk to that, owns some business that he can kind of walk me through it. So knowing that there's support groups out there, the insurance soup, right? That's a huge Facebook page, but even just finding some people that you've seen comment, you like the way they do things, just reach out to them and say, hey, can I pick your brain even for 30 minutes or 15 minutes if you have time? I saw that you talked about, your community involvement. I want to just pick on that. And then the hard thing for me, it really is the time management, because I could work from, sun up to sundown and still feel like I don't have enough time in the day. And so, I was talking to someone just the other day, like, what's the hardest part? And it's that there's no one holding you accountable, but I'm not meaning accountability like to show up and, work. It's to show up and then leave work when you need to leave work. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
it does. It does totally. And we spoke about this a little on the last episode on how hard entrepreneurship is. And I think there's a big misconception going on out there now. If you look at these little 1 minute, 30-second clips on social media, everyone's saying, oh, be an entrepreneur, it's the best. You work for yourself. You make all this money. Look at this fancy car I drive. Mm-hmm. And listen, I think there's some truth to that after you're 20 plus years in. But I mean, in those first few years, man, it is such a hard grind. And you really give your life to be an entrepreneur. And it's definitely not for everybody.
One of the first things, Maverick, you said when we logged on here was I quickly realized I wasn't going to own the bank.
Yeah.
What does being an owner of a business mean to you?
It's everything. I tell myself all the time that I'm so grateful for all of the struggles. I really am. When I'm on a Saturday morning driving my kids to the park or to the zoo, and I see the guy, stocking the shelves at the store, I'm just so grateful that, I'm not having to do that. Regardless of, on that last Tuesday when I had, 20 service tasks to do, and I still needed to get 15 quotes out, and I still needed to make my calls with new prospects. And yeah, I was not liking it then. But on Saturday or Friday afternoon when I leave early, or on Tuesday when I take my kids to the doctor, those are what make it worth it. So, and kind of what you talked about, it's easy. It looks easy after 20 years, right? That's the it must be nice, right? We're in the it must be nice phase right now. We're in the phase that no one wants to notice until you are, sitting on that 20-year book, and they're like, hey, he got there overnight. And I have to remind myself that sometimes.
Yeah. I'm a big visual guy. I got the trust the process. I got, signs, because I think it's super important, like you said, to just stick your head up and enjoy the journey. Like the late nights and just enjoy where you're at and starting the business and starting the agency. And, our friend Daniel Song, who was on the podcast a couple episodes ago, he talked about on his podcast when, he removed himself from producing and kind of just working more on the business, and how he does miss the quoting and binding game and different things. So, I agree with you. I think it's important to enjoy that journey.
Yeah, and I think it's like with, I didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry, but I think it's like with anything, it's easy to, get caught up in the fact that it's not very fun right now. But like you said, Daniel, I mean, when you're on the other side, you're like, man, those were the best days. Those were when we were, boots on the ground growing it. And I think we'll all look back on that and be grateful we stuck it out. That's for sure.
Yeah. Two things I want to touch on right there is, when we went to that New York City event, Stephen, and I spoke to Emmanuel for a long time, he had a really good point that this is going back to the visualization aspect, is to think of something material that you really want, or vision something that you really want from the business, right? So it could be something as silly as, hey, there's this brand new hybrid Range Rover that I'm obsessed with, and picture that in your head. I got it saved on my phone. The color of the car, the wheels, the color on the inside, where I want to take my family. I want to take my whole family on vacation to this beautiful place upstate and just take everyone there, driving in the Range Rover. Like, if you can really visualize it when you get to that point, it's just going to be so amazing. And then to bridge off that, something David has told me is to, which I really like, is set a goal for yourself, or something more short term, like, hey, this year I want to bring on 100,000 in new revenue, and write down, what that reward would be once you hit that goal. And then make sure you reward yourself, because a lot of the times, especially as an entrepreneur, we don't stop and reward ourselves. We just keep going. Yeah,
definitely.
So those are just two things I want to touch on.
Talking about the visualization thing, you guys are actually the first people I haven't even told my wife this. Monday morning, there is a house on my way to where I work at, and it's an amazing house. It's a little out of my way. I actually know the family that own it. They have about 200 acres, and that's my ultimate goal, is to be able to provide my family with a farm to raise our kids and animals and stuff on. And every Monday morning, I go out of my way and drive by that and say, hey, we're gonna be there eventually. We're gonna be there.
Love that.
But that's all here and good, and I can tell you and get the goosebumps and be like, oh, I'm pumped up about it. But you still have to remember it on Tuesday when you have 40 service things.
Yep.
Like, it's all relative. You have to think about it on Tuesday or on Thursday when you're working on the things you don't want to work on.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, we'll look to wrap this up, Maverick. I could talk all day long with you, man. It was a good conversation. And for anybody on YouTube, here's my note list, 2 pages almost, of just good nuggets out of this episode. So I appreciate you joining us. We wrap up this podcast mostly with the same question. If you were to wake up tomorrow morning, have to start over from zero and start another scratch agency, what's something you would do differently or focus on?
I probably bring on automation earlier. I took a little bit longer than I probably should have to do that. As a one-man show, I don't think you understand how much it helps until you have it in place. I mean, I had 40 texts go out to prospects and follow-up texts this morning that I didn't have to set and write out. That, and then just be proud of the brand you've built initially. I think took me some time to really feel proud about my business and say, hey, I am an entrepreneur and I am growing something that, not a lot of 26-year-olds are doing. And so it's something that it took me some time, but definitely be proud of it right off the bat. Because regardless if you make it one day, it's still an accomplishment that a lot of people aren't ever going to achieve.
Absolutely. Well, Maverick, thank you very much for taking the time to join Shawn and I. We really appreciate it. Why don't you pitch where people can get in touch with you? Maybe someone wants to pick your brain or just follow along the Bison Ridge journey. What's the best place to get in touch?
Yeah, so I am Mav_Bison Ridge on all social medias. Maverick Pitchford on Facebook. You guys can DM me. Reach out anytime. I love talking. I love talking about processes and just agency, because every single person, they run these things differently, and I don't think there's a perfect way to do it. So I love to talk to anybody that can.
All right, everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.